Hello, everyone, and welcome to this broadcast. Welcome to this resource as I'm going to be continuing a series of breaking limitations off of your life. Mark DeJesus here. I love to help people experience healing, freedom, transformation in their life from the inside out. I pray that my story and my journey will be a help to you in the experience I've had in helping others. Really, my goal is to share with you the things that have been helpful for my life and for my journey. So I'm looking forward to giving you this resource today. Want to welcome everyone to this broadcast. Again, Mark DeJesus here. Looking forward to sharing a great session today. I'm excited about this. And I've been doing a series on breaking limitations off of your life and seeing your life and your journey through the lens of God being very involved in it. And I want to encourage your lens and your thinking and your heart to receive what's available for the full potential of your life. And again, sharing all the things that have been helpful in my journey and in my life and share it with you. And I want to say that this series that I teach on, this is for overcomers. This is for people that they really want to experience what's available in their life. And I've found when I've done teaching materials online, or maybe I've hosted conferences or have done teaching series in churches or in various places, is sometimes when you get into the nuts and bolts of transformation, sometimes the crowd starts to whittle down. Now, I don't mean necessarily in numbers, although that can happen, but you start to see that the people that they just want to make excuses for their life and their journey, they want to stay stuck, that you start to see there becomes this this resistance that kicks up. And I found in the ministry of Jesus the very same thing. And Jesus didn't try to argue or plead with those people. In fact, Jesus' ministry of teaching actually made the crowd go smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the last people that were there, he looked at them and said, "Do you guys want to leave too?" There wasn't this I'm just going to, make this, I'm just going to change this so that I alleviate from you the challenges of working on areas of your heart. He's like, no, we're going to keep going. Now, it is my intent in everything that I be able to share what I'm sharing in the context of love and grace. Everything I share, that you would know that you're loved. And you know that everything is accomplished by the grace of God. And many of you have come to awakenings in your life by listening in this series, by watching this. That's God's grace. It's his work on your heart, awakening areas. You have to know the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and he wants to use condemnation to beat you down, discourage you, get you into failure mentalities, get you into feeling terrible about your journey. And God is actually interested in empowering you. So everything I'm seeking to do here is to empower you. I'm going to get into today 10 mindsets for overcoming limitation. 10 mindsets for overcoming limitations. Now, limitations come in various forms, in various ways. It could be financial limitations, relational limitations, thinking limitations, just some area of your life where you're bumping up against something that creates resistance, and it's this membrane you can't seem to get past. Now, I'm a firm believer that we often carry some of the limitations of our generation. We carry some of the blessings and some of the limitations of our generation. And it's just something to be aware of. It's not something to be obsessed about, but just be aware of that many of the things that you're bumping up against, where you feel this wall, where it's like, man, you're trying to have a good marriage, but you're bumping up against something where it's like, what you're hitting up against is the resistance in your generations where there weren't a lot of good marriages. And now you're up against that, and it's now your assignment to learn and break through the limitation in marriages or in parenting or in how you do life. Maybe you have lots of mental and emotional health issues in your family. Maybe your family history is filled with addictions. And you are now at places in your life where those limitations want to hold you back. The good news is that God has given us a new identity. He's given us a new lineage, but there is resistance that comes against that. And I love helping people to break through those limitations in their life. This whole series has been based on Isaiah 61 and the desire for God to do an exchange in your life. You talk about the beauty for ashes, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. There's these areas of brokenness where God is saying, bring it to me, and I'm going to do an exchange with you. And so I've highlighted 3 key areas that will come up that will be a last resort work of the enemy to keep you from moving forward. One is the victim mindset. In order for us to break through limitations, we have to heal and overcome the victim mindset. And I did a whole segment on that. I also brought out the battle of self-pity, which is a nasty, nasty work, but one that you'll have to come to terms with understanding its influence in your own life and recognizing, hey, no one can tell you this for you, that you have self-pity. You have to recognize in your own life you've got it. And then the last session that I did was on foreboding, or the fearful mindset of constantly projecting into the future a destructive outcome and coming into alignment with that. And then it becomes your lens on how you see life. Beware of listening to fear as your friend. And there's so much so much work that I do on that. I have many recommendations I gave out of that. Not going to rehash all that. You can go check all that out. But what we're going to get into today is 10 mindsets. These are just perspectives. Now, what you need to realize is you're on a journey. You're on a journey of this. So you need to sit back, have some compassion on yourself, that these breakthroughs are not going to happen overnight. They're going to come about through process. So there's no beating yourself up. There's no telling yourself all the things you did wrong. This is about empowerment. Everything that I seek to do. Now, we may go through pain, and I may bring a strong word, but it's only for bringing truth in a place of love so that you can move towards empowerment. I want to add empowerment to all the armor that you have, because spiritually you're loaded up. You're loaded up. You've got a sword, a shield, you've got a breastplate, you've got shoes, you've got a belt, you've got all kinds of gear here. And what I want to do is encourage the power that is available in you. I feel like sometimes a lot of Christian teachings can disempower people. You're left with kind of like, well, I just, I feel like what do I do now? And I never want to leave people without an empowerment that you have what it takes with Christ in you. You have what it takes to overcome. 2 thoughts before I give you the 10 things. And kind of think about, why do we have these limitations in the first place? I talked about your generations, right? And what you've inherited and what you're carrying. And now your legacy is to leave for the next generation where you battled through and hand that off as a legacy. Well, you also need to understand that you're called to live as an overcomer. And living as an overcomer, you're going to need something to overcome. So I would encourage you, the battles you face, stop asking God to take them away from you. And instead, develop a posture of, I want to learn to overcome. And I want to learn what it takes, because if we're constantly asking God to rescue us from stuff, then that's how we're going to approach things. And what you're going to need is going to need to connect to the resources available so that you can actually stand up for yourself against resistance and access the tools of the kingdom that's available inside of you, right? But I also want to put compassion on this and help you to understand the reasons limitations are tough. I'm going to give you the reason they're tough is because you weren't fathered and mentored in the things that you needed. We live in a fatherless culture. And I'm not talking about fathers being physically absent. I'm talking about all kinds of absence, because many fathers were physically in the home, but were not spiritually and emotionally engaged and did not equip their children. I am seeing a mass. You want to know what a pandemic is? The pandemic hitting our world is the fatherlessness that people are manifesting in various ways. And I get into that in many other resources, many other teachings, but the cry of the heart to overcome is really your cry to be fathered and mentored. I look back at, think about movies that you've watched that really have motivated you, right? That you really love. We get inspired by these dramas or action movies where people overcome. A movie is boring if it starts off and everything's going well and then it just stays well and it ends well. There's no such thing as a movie like that. And within 10 minutes, you turn it off and go, this is boring, this is dumb. Why do we get so engaged in these dramatic stories that have battles? Because your life has them. And you oftentimes see yourself in those battles. But the interesting thing is, many of the things that we look at have father threads in them that bring out the cry of what we need. I remember as a kid, one of the motivating movies that I watched was Rocky. You know, I'd watch him, and when they would have that montage of him, dun 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 dun, he's doing the jump ropes and he's running, yo Mick, and he's in that place. Like, I just get there, and within a couple minutes, I'm 10 years old and I'm jumping up and I'm doing jumping jacks. I'm like, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to do those things, right? There's a motivation there. And then as you watch the story, there's movement of emotion. There's connection. Why? Because when we watch Rocky, we're moved by Mick. Mick was his trainer, right? And in many ways, Mick wasn't just a trainer. Mick was a father figure in his life. Mick took a place. Now, Mick had rough edges around him, right? So he did a lot of yelling. You gotta get a rock. You know, just always yelling at them. But there were moments of compassion, and there were moments. But at the end of the day, Mick believed in him. And that is what we need restoring in our hearts, is that God believes in who he is in us, that he's looking at you as a father. He's with you, and you have what it takes to overcome. And so, like, I remember when I was this is another movie that they're rehashing now in modern makes of it, The Karate Kid. Remember, we watched this kid, Daniel LaRusso, who's getting beat up by bullies, and all this stuff is happening, and he's got changes, and he's moving. And what does Daniel LaRusso lack? He lacks a father figure in his life. He lacks a father's presence. In the midst of a battle, a father figure rises forth. Right, Mr. Miyagi, wax on and wax off. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you might be a millennial or younger and you never saw those movies. But what's the thing that's invigorating about Karate Kid? Is it the Eagle Claw, that he does this fancy kick and wins the tournament? Sure. What really motivates? It's the battle that he went through to overcome. And what made the difference was a father figure coming into the picture. Because that's what Mr. Miyagi represented, was standing in the gap for what he needed in his fight. It's all this stuff that motivates us and moves us. And so our resistance in limitation is we get to a point where we were not equipped. You were not equipped. So whatever you're struggling with, you go, I got my marriages on the rocks. I don't know what to do. I've got this addiction battle. I don't know what to do. I've got this financial limitation. I've lost my job. I've got emotional struggles. I've got mental health battles. It is evidence of where we've not been fathered. It's not that you're not good enough, smart enough, or that you just can't get it together, or you don't trust Christ enough, or you're just a stinky Christian and you just don't pray enough, don't read your Bible enough. It's not simply about those things that we get lost in and beat ourselves up. What you need is the equipping of the Father over your heart. Because every one of us has a homing device within us for the Father's equipping. Look at your limitations and ask yourself, did your earthly father equip you with mindsets to help you at this stage? 99% of the time, the answer is no. So if you answer no to that, then you're in a high percentage company. And what we need to do is change the generations where we start getting equipped by working through it, learning, developing the mindsets I'm going to share with you today, and passing that on to future generations. You got that? So whether it's understanding Mick's presence of you gotta get a rock. Oh, you like that impersonation? Or Mr. Miyagi's eights, whatever it is. All those things point us back to, what do we need to overcome? We need a Father's presence in our life. And God in heaven calls himself Father. That's the name he decided to bring about to us. This isn't my idea. In fact, the Bible in many ways reveals that's who he is. And Jesus, all he talked about when he referred to God was my Father, the Father, your Father. Jesus, show us how to pray. Yeah, pray our Father. That's how you're going to start this thing off. Jesus, help us with this. Well, I'm going to go up and I'm going to send you the Comforter. And he's going to remind you of everything I said. And you're going to access the Father in my name. I'm not going to do this for you, but you're going to be empowered by him. So you're going to work out your sonship and you're going to work out your identity by learning to connect to the love of the Father. And going up against those battles, your sonship and daughtership is going to get sharpened. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited about this journey for you. So wherever you find yourself today, we're going to talk about, okay, these are the 10 mindsets. Where do we go? And this can apply to all the areas of your life that you're up against. I want to, as your brother, bring a fathering exhortation to help your life and help your journey. Now, the first thing I'm going to give you, and you write these down, jot these down, and really my recommendation is take the one thing that sticks out and put that into action. Don't get overwhelmed by the 10 and try to do a million things all at once. That's not the goal of this. But you may be surprised by my first thing that I want to recommend to you. Because sometimes we go, what's the first step? What's the first thing I got to apply? What's the thing I got to do? No, the first thing that we always need in any situation, no matter what's going on, is we need to engage the power of God's love. Now, what we need is, number one, to engage the power of self-compassion. You see, what we often think to do first is think, I got to fix this. I got to find the 10 keys. I got to learn to think, I got to get out of this. I got to change this. I got to fix this. I need sessions with Mark. I need this. I need that. I got to know what you need is you need self-compassion. And I'm going to tell you why this is important, because God's number one priority is not to fix you. God's number one priority is you experience relational connection with him. And don't you notice that's where the battle is the most? It's the number one thing honest Christians confess. They feel disconnected to God. They don't feel his loving grace. There's a war. There's a battle. So what you need is you need to connect to his love. Now, his love is here. Where I find the resistance often is we could say, yes, he loves me, but we don't give that to ourselves. So there's a block in the flow of love. And when I talk about the love of God, it's meant to be first received from God. We love God out of response to his love. We love ourselves and see ourselves through his love. And we love other people out of what we carry. That's the flow of love. And if they love us back, it's an added benefit. But we're already being loved by God, so if people cannot love us back, it's okay. Because we know how to receive God's love, see ourselves through that, and it puts perspective on our life and our journey. Where I work with people and highly recommend is always starting with self-compassion. We have to look at your situation with loving grace. Otherwise, we won't see it the way we need to see it. We need to get God's perspective. And you cannot get God's perspective apart from his love. He sees you compassionately. Write this word down because this is an important word. Mercy. You see, what we usually do is we usually look at our situation with judgment. I can't get it together. I'm never going to break through. I just can't seem to stay disciplined. I don't know what to do. I can't. And we just beat ourselves up, right? Judgment. Boom, 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 hitting ourselves with the judgment. Well, Paul said something in Romans. It's very powerful in Romans 2. He said, mercy triumphs over judgment. And you ever notice that if somebody's going through something and you judge them, you might feel like you're accurate in what you're saying, but what you're lacking is mercy. And when you lack mercy, you lack the ability to see someone in loving compassion. Here's what mercy is. Mercy is God's compassion over us in our suffering and pain. That's mercy. Sometimes we talk about grace and mercy like grace is what you're given that you didn't deserve, and mercy is not being given what you did deserve. Those are they're lame definitions because they cheapen the power of those words. Mercy is God's. He looks at you in your suffering. You judge yourself. You beat yourself up. God looks at you through loving compassion. So I like to start with, what would it look like for you to lovingly accept yourself right where you're at? Look at all your limitations and look at them through the lens of love. Take in a deep breath. Go, okay, I'm loved right now. I'm not loved because these things I'm conquering them. I'm not loved when I get over them. I'm loved right now. Because if not, you will venture into your life living a life of conditional love. You'll live a life of self-hate, self-rejection, and you'll live in performance, and you just want to get out of these issues and get away from them because they're yucky. No, you need to learn the power of love right where you're at right now and come to self-acceptance. Self-compassion says, I accept the reality that this is where I'm at. If you can't accept it, you won't face it. Now, there's one little hook in this that people get lost in. They go, I struggle with that because if I'm accepting this, then it means I'm saying it's okay, or I'm saying that this is permanent. Nope, not at all. Acceptance accepts where you are and the condition that you're in right now. You say, well, I'm in a crappy marriage. Well, loving acceptance calms your heart down and looks at it and says, well, all right, this is where I'm at. I accept this is where I'm at. Now what? And then it gives us opportunity to look into the kindness of God, to be empowered, and what's my decision going to be next? See, if I don't do that, I will live a life in blame and shame. And you shame yourself for being in this marriage. I can't believe I even chose this person. I can't believe I'm even in this. Oh, God, what are you doing? Are you torturing me? We just kick up that animosity. We kick up that just contempt and all that stuff that just rises up in us. And we just getting all gnarled up. And then we get condemned. It's because I'm not praying enough. And you know what? It's that woman. It's her fault. It's that husband. He does nothing for my life. Feel all that? Feel all that heat rising up? What does love do? Settles the waters, and it goes, okay. It doesn't say sin is okay. It doesn't say all this garbage is permanent. What it does is it says, I'm able to look at it now, and I'm able to see it in the way I need to see it. It's like Jesus when he saw the woman caught in the act of adultery. It's the perfect picture. They've all got the stones. They're ready to roll. Jesus looks at her with acceptance. He's not thrown off by the sin. In fact, he hits at the key issue with one statement. He cleared the room and dealt with all the issues of the accusers and dealt with her issue. What was her issue? It was shame. She wasn't looking at her situation with compassion. When you don't look at your situation with compassion, you never get to the root of it. You never get to the healing of it. You cycle in guilt and shame will keep you bound to the same issue. I remember one day when I was so frustrated. I was pastoring a small church. I wasn't doing well. I was overwhelmed with the amount of people for help. I was trying to raise up leaders. I felt there was a call to a new level. A new level being, I could sense that it wasn't going to be pastoring for the rest of my life. That God was calling me into full-time writing and doing coaching work with people and consulting. And I was moving into new avenues. And I was getting phone calls from people in other states and eventually people in other countries. But there was limitations within the church. And I fasted and I prayed and I did spiritual calisthenics like many of you do. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. I got to break these limitations because I need leaders to rise up and really what I need to do is just let it go and move on. But I couldn't come to terms with it because I felt shame and failure. I'm failing. This is going to be on my resume of failures. God's like, why does it have to be a failure? I don't look at things through failure. And so one day, everything changed. You know how it changed? It didn't change because all of a sudden, the beautiful divine revelation came to me. No, the day came where I said, okay, I accept this is where I'm at. And I'm going to stop beating myself up. And that became the genesis of the book, God Loves Me and I Love Myself. It became the inspiration where God addressed my heart and says, you're always looking for the answers to break through, but you beat yourself up whenever times get tough. You get angry and you start beating yourself up in your heart, and that comes out in your relationships. And then you're stressed out, and then you're out of your peace. And the work God began to do in my heart would get warred out of my life, and I would disconnect from love, and I would just get back into just beating myself up, right? And so God had to begin to heal that in my heart by first allowing me to practice self-acceptance. I'm loved. I'm loved. And I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. I'm going to accept this is where I'm at. It's okay that I'm not okay. Now, you don't have to do this in pity, because many people don't know how to face adversity. So when it kicks up, they want compassion, but they turn to self-pity instead of compassion. Go back and go to those other sessions. Go to the first one, the second one, and the third one, to just allow God to detox your system. Self-compassion walks us through the power of God's love, which I talk about the threefold process. The first is self-acceptance. It's okay that I'm not okay. It's okay that I'm at where I'm at right now. This isn't going to be permanent, but it's okay. 2 is the patience of God. Accessing his patience. It says, it'll take as long as it takes. God isn't in a hurry, so stop being in a hurry. This is a journey. This is a process. Number 3, kindness. God is kind in how he addresses you. So in his kindness, what is love saying to you right now? What is God in his love speaking to your heart? And then you find the one thing. And for me, that illuminated a new step. And it gave me the courage to leave that pastoring role and make a tough decision to step out into a new level of trust. What was amazing was when I stepped into that, the new opportunities began to slowly over time, not overnight, but slowly over time begin to open up. It still had some learning and growing. And then it even led us to another stage where we relocated from being up in Connecticut to where we are now in North Carolina. And those took steps. It wasn't all like everything's there on a platter laid out. Nope. But it was actually lovingly accepting where I'm at, and then I became empowered by love to tune into the faith decision that's needed. And God met me in that and walked with me through it. And I apply that process to this day. Love helps us to recognize, you know what, you haven't been equipped. And God in his love as a father is going to equip you. He's going to be, forgive me for these 80s analogies, the Mr. Miyagi or the Mick that you need today to believe you have what it takes. And you know what I learned? In self-pity, I may think I'm wallowing in it and I'm wallowing in the issue, but in self-pity, I never actually face myself and the issues I need to address. I think I am. In self-compassion, you really see things the way you need to see them. I let go of the pressure of being better by tomorrow. I let go of the pressure I lived under. The truth is, with self-compassion, you don't start with fixing. You start with being settled in love. I'm going to receive your love. In self-compassion, you stop blaming yourself, beating yourself up. You stop blaming other people and beating up other people. Self-compassion allows me to stop hating myself and hating my life. Instead, I embrace where I'm at, knowing this isn't permanent. Self-compassion gives endurance for the long haul, for the journey. In kindness, you stop beating yourself up. You stop judging yourself. You let mercy come in. When I experience love, most of all, I am empowered. So, if there's nothing that you receive out of anything I talk about today, number 1 cannot be skipped past. But number 2, it's what leads me into. In love, now number 2 doesn't make sense without number 1, because in number 2, you beat yourself up. But I need to develop a lifestyle. This is a lifestyle, not just a one-time thing, a lifestyle of taking responsibility, full responsibility for my life and for my journey. Okay, that's what this is all about. The motto of this is, no matter what happens to me, I will heal, I will mature, I will grow. No matter what happens around me, no matter what happens in my country, in the state, a province I live, in the nation I'm in, no matter what happens, I will grow. No matter what happens in my marriage, no matter what happens to my kids, what happens at my job, what happens at my church, what happens in my community, in my neighborhood, I will grow. And here's some statements that I believe are incredibly powerful for this, that reinforce this. The first one that you can document is no one will want freedom. No one can want freedom more than I do. No one can want freedom for me. This is what I mean specifically. No one can want freedom for me more than I do. No one can want to grow more than I do. No one can want me to overcome more than I do. So let me give you a tip for those of you that are receiving counseling, coaching, or mentoring. If the person helping you wants it more than you do, you're going to have a problem. No one can want it more than you. So if you go into receiving help and you feel like you want it more than the person giving you help, perfect. That's where you need to be. This is a way of taking full responsibility for your life. Because otherwise, you will want other people to rescue you. You want other people to do the work that only you can do in your own heart. So I have a personal mindset of taking responsibility that no one can want it more than me. So I've got to find that place to decide. And here's another statement of responsibility. I always have the ability to decide. I talked back before in the victim thinking. It says, the victim mindset says, I have no choices and no options. That's a lie. You can always choose, even if it's simply choosing your attitude. I always know no matter what's going on in my life, I have the ability to choose my perspective. And if I'm out of it, if my attitude stinks, I have the ability to freshen it and get it back by my power to decide. Now, it may be a fight, it may be a wrestling, but it gets me back into, because that's my choice. It's not your choice. You can be as rude as you want. I can choose my response. I can choose my attitude. I can always decide. And so I want to give you back your ability to decide today. Many times you're taught that it's your conditions that determine your life. And I want to empower you. It's your decisions. It's not about you making all the perfect decisions, because let me tell you, you won't. You'll make some decisions that don't go the best way. And here's the thing that I want to just squash. Christians think like this, is they think if God is in it, it will work out perfectly. So if I make decision A, then if God's in it, it will work out perfectly. No, God can be in it, and it has a lot of troubles in it. And in that, you grow and you learn, and you go to step B, and maybe that becomes more fruitful. Or maybe you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and then maybe J starts to smooth out, but it was hell from A to I. Stop this like if God's in it, it's just going to work out beautifully. I've felt led by God in many stages, and it went terribly. It was really hard. And I'd be like, God, I missed you. Because that's how I was taught in Christianity. If God's going to work out, there's just going to be money rolling out, opportunities rolling out, open doors. It's amazing. And we are not equipping Christians. We say, you just make this decision and everything's going to roll out. Nope, I'm never going to teach you that. I'm going to teach you that, you know what? You make a tough decision and there's tough things that can come out of it and happen. But you know what? Way to make the tough decision. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. And whether you get a lot of resistance or not, it's not the end. God tells us a promise. All things work together for the good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. If it's not good, it's not the end. And I had to remind myself of that over and over again because I believed in dark times. this is the end and this is my permanent sentence. And I couldn't shake the darkness. But I had to remind myself, this isn't the end of the story. And all of these dark seasons and difficulties, they cause you to go to the bottom of your heart and really get to that gut honest place. Do I really want to be an overcomer? Because there's a lot of people being filtered out in Christianity because they don't want to be overcomers. They don't say that. But they were taught that when you follow Jesus, it's easy. And nice roses and everything's going to be nice. I don't know who told you that, because Jesus never taught us that. He said, in this world, you're going to have trouble. Where did we stop teaching people how to live as overcomers? So I've got to get my focus off of my circumstances dictating my mindset. And here's what I do. Instead of obsessing over, God, change my circumstances, I start to focus my attention on, God, change me. Change me. I welcome you. When you take responsibility for your life, you take your focus off of the circumstances, off of the people, and you start to take your life back. Yeah, that family member may have wounded you. Yeah, that church may have wronged you. That business person may have. And yeah, maybe you grew up in really difficult limitations. Maybe you grew up in poverty. Grew up with not a lot of resources, not a lot of help. God knows that and you know that. But you can choose to take your life back by taking your decisions back. And the first decision I can make is, what's my attitude going to be? And I'm going to change that. See, for so long, my attitude was determined by the day. And I let the day determine it. And boy, did that go sour for a long time until I took my empowerment back. Another way that I'm going to empower you today is I want to encourage you to start asking new questions in your life. When we're under limitation, we start to ask questions. Everyone starts to ask questions. The famous one is where Job in the scriptures gets hit with the worst set of circumstances ever. Beware of saying, oh, I'm in a Job situation, because I don't know that all your kids got killed, all your property got burned down, you lost all your possessions, you have diseases riddled all over your body, and your wife is leaning over your shoulder and saying, curse God and die, what's the matter with you? I don't think, but in Job's situation, what was his response? Initially, is something we often do. Why? Why me? Right? We want to know why God and why me. And those are very disempowering questions. God is always in the work of faith, hope, and love. They add power and overcoming to your life. So these questions automatically disempower you. Because if I am going through a hard time, let's say you're going through a financial setback, and you go, why me? You know what that invites? Condemnation, shame, guilt, performance, evaluation, religious legalism. It invites the accuser. Why me? I'll tell you why you. You don't do this enough, and you don't do that enough. And you know what? God's not looking out for you. And you know what? This situation and that situation, this is your fault, and you're never going to break free, and this is going to be your permanent existence. So what I did that helped me a lot is I began to start asking different questions, because I realized these downer questions I'm asking, and here's the two questions I asked myself that almost killed me. And when I say almost killed me, killed my sanity. Are you ready? I've said this before in other broadcasts, but these two questions are killers for believers. And they go like this. In times of limitation, we go, what am I doing wrong? There's the first one. Because when you say, what am I doing wrong? It invites the accuser to accuse you, because folks, we don't live under the law. We live under grace. We live under a loving context with God that, I'm not saying he ignores our sins. That's not what it is. It's the priorities relationship. And he's not sitting over your shoulder with a clipboard going, you messed up, you messed up, you messed up. Now, we live under that because we live under condemnation, which is rooted under the law. And it invites Satan to accuse us because Satan has a ministry. You didn't know that, did you? He has a ministry. Paul talked about it. It's called the ministry of condemnation. Yeah, it's a ministry. It has headquarters. It has, it has a website and everything. Probably www.theministryofcondemnation.something, who knows. I'm joking. Paul called it the ministry of condemnation. It's a false ministry. It's not of God. It's not of the new covenant, but it comes to accuse you. And that first question would invite, what am I doing wrong? Well, in all of our situations, it would be very easy to come up with 25 things that you're currently doing that are not perfect. God used all the people in the scriptures, despite even rough decisions and tough setbacks and things they did that were wrong and sin issues and all these things. Now he's working those things out. He's healing those areas. He's wanting us to be aware of how to grow and overcome. But the enemy loves to disqualify you because then you lose your confidence. So the first thing that I would say is, what am I doing wrong? Well, this. And I go, yes, I know it. And I'd try to fix them. And when I would try to fix them, it'd get worse. And I get more discouraged. And then I'd be in depression because I can't seem to break free. Second question. What am I not doing that I should be doing? Then you start shoulding. Going into should land. And when you ask that question, I should be praying more. I should be now that there may be some truth to that, but it's I always help people understand it's not the statement, it's what's behind it. That's why we need to test the spirits, because it's not the statement that comes to you, because sometimes we take the statement lock, stock, and barrel, and we're not understanding the spirit behind it, because you can say the same statement and have a different spirit. I can tell you it's a good season for us to pray more and seek God and just learn to seek his heart, right? I can say that of exhortation and encouragement. I can say that same thing under demonic condemning influence. You know what you need? You're not praying enough, and you know it, and you need to pray more, right? Now, which is going to empower you? The second statement or the first one? The second statement sounds good, sounds truthful. It's lock, stock, full of bondage. So this is why I don't encourage people to go into what am I doing wrong or what are all the things I should be doing that I'm not doing. No. First, apply number one, loving acceptance. Tune into grace. Take responsibility and start asking new questions. Instead of all the stuff that we say, here's another one that we say. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Oh, the accuser loves that question. He loves it. I'll tell you what's wrong with you. I got 75 things I'm going to tell you that are wrong with you. No wonder Christians struggle so much with depression, because many times we are under the assault of accusation, condemnation, guilt, and shame. And anyone under that, if you have a friend that sat you down at lunch every day and said, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with you and what you're not doing, you would leave that lunch with an upset stomach and you never want to go to lunch again. So why do we keep inviting? So I changed my journey by starting to ask new questions that invite God into the picture. Because what's wrong with me doesn't invite God, because God is not an accuser. Why God is not an inviting question for God, because why God makes me an accuser of God, and it makes me want to play God. And we like to play God a lot, don't we? We want to find the right lever and get God to move and get things rocking and rolling, right? So I don't want to play God. You're God. So I don't need to know all the whys. I don't need to. Now, if you show me a why or show me something, you'll show me. But I don't need to know, because you're God and I'm not. I'm going to tune my questions to invite you and your answers and your word to become new ways of thinking for my life. So here's a great way to start. If I want to reset my palate, what am I grateful for right now? And in my deepest and darkest of times, I'd look over at my wife. I'd say, thank you, God, for my wife. I'd look at my children, even though They'd keep us up late at night, and it's at times exhausting being a parent. I love them with all my heart. And I look and I go, thank you for them. And I would look at where I was at in my life, and I would look, and sometimes it was tough to connect to any kind of gratitude. And I would just go, thank you for oxygen. Thank you that I've got shoes on right now. Thank you that I'm breathing, and I had water, and I had something to eat right now to ground myself. Ask yourself the question, who do I love right now? And start connecting to the groundedness of relationship. I'd ask myself, what is God in his kindness saying to me right now? And here's the key question I would ask. How can I learn to be an overcomer in this situation? What does this situation make possible? See, now what you're doing is you're inviting empowerment. When your questions invite empowerment, many of your questions are dead-end questions that invite the accuser to just beat you over the head, and we need to shut him up. Ask new questions. And those new questions are going to lead you into a mindset of number 4. Become teachable and learn what you need to learn. And what I want you to start recognizing is let your journey work for you. We need to stop believing that our lives are against us, that the odds are just all against. Now, there may be odds against you. Yes, it's called life. It's called trouble. It's called resistance. You're an overcomer. So a soldier going into battle doesn't call the president of the United States and say, why are they shooting at me? They know they're a soldier, and they know they're in a battle. So I want you to know who you are and where you are. You're a soldier, you're a son of God, you're a daughter of God, and you're in a battle. So it's not about life working against you. It's about you growing and developing a new mindset. When you develop a mindset of learning, there's no more failure. So stop beating yourself up about the decisions of the past and bad things. Learn from them. If you beat yourself up, you never learn from them. In the kingdom of God, there is no failure, folks. Only learning. Only learning. So let go of the condemnation of failure. But you got to be teachable. Because when you're teachable, you humble yourself to learn what you need to learn, grow in what you need to grow in, and heal what you need to heal. Do you notice that people who are stuck under limitations, like they're in the same limitations and they never break free, they never position themselves to learn from new input? As a common factor. They stay in a standard of their own world, and they never, ever get new input to challenge their thinking. So here's the facts. Your limitations reveal something. They reveal something. There's stuff you don't know. You don't have the experience or the knowledge or understanding how to handle where you're at. It's okay. You got to seek it out. If you have a mindset of learning, then it's going to be enjoyable. If you have a mindset of I'm not good enough and I failed and I stink and everything I do turns out terrible, then you're going to keep yourself stuck. So it's learning. So now in the atmosphere of love, I'm going to identify, number 5, the disempowering mindsets that validate limitations. Now, you see right there at the top, in love, don't beat yourself up. But in love, go, what's the thinking that keeps coming up? When I hit this wall, what's the first thought that comes up? What do you feel? I'll never break through. I can't do this. I can't take it anymore. Document those. Write those things down. What are the statements you keep saying to yourself? Then ask yourself the question. Just put the statement there and ask yourself the question, what do I want to believe? What's the overcoming mindset? This takes some work, but this is the journaling work. Write on one side of the column the statements that come up that you believe. And don't make it rocket science. You feel that limitation. Boom. Right? Come up against it. Boom. What do you say to yourself in that moment? Well, usually you ask questions, right? Why God? Why God? Right? I addressed that before. And then now you start saying stuff to yourself. It's because I'm not a good enough Christian, or I'm never going to break free. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I can't take it anymore. Write those statements down. And on the right side, start to ask yourself, what do I want to start believing? And take those statements on the left side and label them. What kind of statement is that? Like, I'll never get through this. You go, there's the victim thinking. I'm all alone and no one cares. Oh, there's that self-pity. Just label it. Call it out for what it is, in love. Because this stuff isn't you anyways. It might be working in you, but it's not you. This stuff isn't who God's called you to be, right? Separate it out. Look at it. Label them. Because disempowering perspectives will then get you focused on the wrong thing. So we need to highlight these and let God come into them to begin replacing them with new mindsets. Because otherwise, if you're like, I can never catch a break, or some people say, well, I'm just cursed. My life is just cursed. And the more you say that, the more you go, you look for ways to validate. See over there? See that? See that? That's the curse happening right there. I can never catch a break. See, there it is. No one loves me. See what they did? And then you miss, you have like blinders. You miss the opportunity. You miss the thing that could actually help you to break free, right? In this place, we want to replace. But here's what I found too. When I'm breaking through limitation, this can be a good place and opportunity to forgive. To forgive those, because many times our negative beliefs are tied to a trauma, some drama, some painful stuff. Okay? And we need to, two ways. We need to forgive others. We need to forgive ourselves. And don't carry. We don't want to move into the next stage carrying the baggage of relational pain in our lives. So this is an opportunity to forgive. And I'm right at the middle of these 10. But before I get to number 6, it's not going to have movement until I start allowing the forgiveness process to take place. Now, here's the cool thing that happens. When I start letting forgiveness happen, it changes my lens. I start to see things fresher, out of love, out of compassion, and my story starts to change. So number 6, allow yourself to welcome. I got to choose to welcome. Now, what's a story? It's another way of saying the narrative of your life that interprets where you've come from, where you are, and where you're headed. Where you've come from, where you are, and where you're headed. The biblical word for this is testimony. Testimony is the story you carry. Now, the question I want to ask you, because a testimony is really, this is a story of where I've come from. It now impacts where I am, and it impacts where I'm headed. Are you carrying the testimony of Jesus over your life, or are you carrying the testimony of Satan over your life? It's a good question to ask. Because it's not so much about what happened or what's happening. It's the interpretation of it that makes all the difference. I can have two people who've gone through the same thing. One is empowered and overcoming. The other one's disempowered and stuck. Usually the difference is the interpretation of events. You see, if I looked back at that church experience where I had to leave it as failure, then now that infects my story, and now I'm disempowered. But then I realized that time and experience gave me street cred for people I work with today, because I understand what it takes to pastor something and to work rolling up my sleeves. In fact, there's been pastors who've come to me for one-on-one work, and they say, I don't think I would have even come to you had you not had the pastoral experience you had, because you get my world. So then I was like, wow, I understand what it's like to work in a large church setting and a small church setting. It gave me so much experience. So some of you are like, well, I've had years and years of mental illness history. Yeah, that's going to give you some street cred to have compassion on people. That's why when I work with people and they're maneuvering through mental health stuff, I'm not just beating them up over the head to get over it. Because I understand. I understand when somebody's coming and they're truly stuck. And I don't just tell them, just get over it. I understand. I understand what it's like to spin your wheels over and over again. So Look at your journey as added ammunition for the credibility of your anointed work and how you're going to help others. Now, your story looks for validation. So if you feel that everybody hates you, you're going to look for everybody hating you. It's going to look for validation. And for many of you, let me get away from you. I'm going to talk about me for a second. I had some disempowering stories so hardline fixed. I had it perfected. I could rehearse it. It's like I could just hit the play button. Hey, Mark, so how's this area of your life? And cue. Because I rehearsed it and I had it prepared. You know? It feels true to you, but it's not true, and it's not the truth that sets us free. So your story is either empowering you and you're growing from it, or it's disempowering you. Even look at if you put scriptures on it, or God told me, if it's disempowering you, you need to check the story. So you got to work on your story. And it welcomes the new agreement. Because if you say, I'm learning, I'm growing, things can change, and I'm going to keep growing in this. It welcomes the learning now. It welcomes the adventure, because I'm looking for it. Ask, and it shall be given. What are you asking? Seek, and you shall find. What are you seeking? What's the question you're asking? Why me, God? Well, that's what you're going to find. You're going to find a lot of accusation. Seek, and you shall find. What are you seeking? God, when are you going to get me out of this? What are you seeking on a daily basis? To look for all the people that are against you? Or are you seeking for the opportunities to learn and grow? Because whatever you're seeking for, you're going to find it. In the world we live in, whatever people say is happening, they attach to it as truth, and they will find it. If you think the world's against you, you will find evidence, and you'll stay bound. This is really, really good. Really, really good. I hope this is helping the overcomers, because this is life-changing. You need a new story, and let it welcome. Now, this is a Mark DeJesus important point. You got to give yourself permission, number 7, to practice. You are in practicing. Many people go into depression when they fail or something doesn't work out. Many people quit because you think you should have it all together, take action, and you think if God is in something, it should work out perfectly. Then we get discouraged and think God's left us or abandoned us. You're in process. Let yourself learn. There is no failure when you're learning. Now, here's what I found is helpful. I find I learn most in the doing. Because we live in such we have so much knowledge accessible to us, we keep learning. I'm going to take this class, take this course, take this thing, take this. And that can be dangerous if you don't take action. I feel like I want to start this job or this business. Just do it. Stop talking. Sometimes we talk so much about things that we never actually do it. I learn more in the doing and it not working out and go, oh, I learned some things. Okay, I think I'm going to do it this way next time. Because when you actually do it, you're more invested in it. When you're just thinking theoretically, there's no connection to it. So do it. Most people are stuck because they don't take action. They're procrastinating because they have a fear of failure. There is no failure. Only learning. So give yourself permission to practice, to learn. I got a terrible marriage. I don't know how to have a good marriage. Well, try some things. Well, I've already tried it. Well, try it again. Try it a different way. Learn to develop muscles that just keep learning. Number 8, learn to develop resilience when you experience setbacks. I love this word resilience. I love it because if you look at resilience, the definition of it is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It's a mental, emotional toughness. Look this word up. Because one of these days I'm going to write the book on the rise of the overcomers. And one of the qualities of an overcomer is resilience. I had a setback, had a limitation, had a breakdown. I grieved it. It was sad. I cried through it, worked through it. But then I built myself back up again. And so for many times to develop resilience, we got to adjust our expectation. Because most of us, we go into something and we say, this is how it's going to be, right? And then it's like it doesn't turn out that way. And we go into depression because our set expectation wasn't met. And really what we need to do is go, I didn't realize. When I first stepped out into ministry, where I started a whole new ministry from scratch, I wasn't ready for how many setbacks I had. I thought, I'm going to step in and God's just going to work it out. I had this like great faith, but there was a naivety in it, and I needed to get more well-rounded. Many people say, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go do this. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. I love that heart. Get some groundedness, get some wisdom. And oftentimes it's dismissed. No, because I have faith and I believe. And I go, okay. And then a year later, they quit. Now, was God probably stirring some things? Yes. But what they needed was to adjust their expectation as they go. I'm not telling you lower your expectation to like nothing. That's not what I'm saying. But if I could use this word, evolving, we're learning to develop and we're forming. There's this thing forming over time that God is molding the clay of who you are. And he's using the whole package of all your journey to the formation of your future. That's including the difficult stuff, the weaknesses, the failures. He's using all of it for the good of your future. Not just the good stuff. I know you like the good stuff. When that was great, or this is great, but that's no, the full package for what he's doing for your future. So I've got to learn resilience. So what do you need to do to invite God into your expectation to adjust? Or are you expecting too much and putting too much pressure on yourself? I think we're doing a lot of damage to Christians by telling them in the Dream Big movement. I appreciate the Dream Big movement, but we're teaching Christians that all of you are going to be filthy rich and have big ministries and big businesses, and you're going to be world influencers talking to presidents all around the world. I don't think that's healthy. It's teaching us to be manic. It's teaching us to live as addicts, where we need this rush of this super high and everything's got to be so out there, and then people are spiraling in depression because that's not happening. The full capacity of what is going to happen in your life, really the results of that are in God's hands. He may have you influence 100 people. He may have you influence 1 million people. Just be faithful with what you have, adjust and be resilient, and leave the results in God's hands. Because that's a pathway to peace. But I want to learn to be resilient. Now, here's a question I got to ask to break the victim mindset completely off of you. I want to ask you, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really want? Write that question down for a second. Now, most Christians will respond and say, I want whatever God wants. That sounds nice. Sounds spiritual. But a lot of times it's a cop-out. And I remember one day when I was working, doing some session work with a particular group of people. And I remember one lady I was working with, and we were on the phone, and there was a lot of issues she was working through. She had a life of massive trauma. Probably everything you could think of was there. And she began to tell me, and I'm on the phone, and at the time I had this huge 4x6 whiteboard. I talk about this a lot because I would do a lot of work on the whiteboard. I like to write things, look at them. And I'd be on the phone. I got a headset phone on me, and I'm standing there, and as she's sharing, I'm just writing everything on this board. And I took a step back, and I looked at this whiteboard, and it was full, her story. And I'm processing through it and just understanding and just seeing it with compassion. And it can be very easy for you to come under the negativity under it, come under the discouragement, or come under fix. Oh my goodness, there's all these things we got to fix. Nah, I don't need to be overwhelmed. I stood back and looked at this and I said, can I ask you a question? What is it that you want? And she said a statement that really, really taught me something about this journey. She said, no one has ever asked me that question. My whole life, I have no memory. You see, people who've been victimized, abused, traumatized, they lose their ability to decide. And I want to give it back to you. Stop seeing yourself as dreaming apart from God. He's with you. What is it that you want? I know you want what God wants, because if you're a believer, that's your heart. But connect to desire. The Bible says when desire is conceived, it's a tree of life. And many of you are in depression and discouragement because desire has been squashed. I'm not going to say what I want because I've been beat up. I've been beat up too much. Okay. We're going to invite God to heal that, to restore desire. Now, the other part of that verse says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. That hope deferred means the hope or the expectation you have is just delayed. It's so prolonged, it wore you out and it beat you up. It's time to be resilient. Take a step back. Take the pressure off. Let God heal you. Let his loving kindness work in your heart and life. Start dreaming again. What is it that I want? Just get clear about it. Because sometimes many people say, I have no idea. Okay. Well, start connecting to the simple things today. After you get out of work, what is it that you want to do that would bring restoration to your heart today? Start with simple things. What do you want to do in that free moment you have? What do you and your spouse want to do today that would bring relational connection? What can you do? Start deciding to restore life to the heart again. I'm speaking to some people here. Now, the last one is very simple. I'm not saying what are the 10 steps, your 40 goals, and all the things you're going to do. In the atmosphere of love, ask yourself, what does love say to me today? What is God in his love saying to me today? Because all you need to do is number 10, just look at what's the next step. The next step may be as simple as, I got to make that phone call. The next step may be, I need more rest. The next step may be, I need to start that thing I need to have that conversation. I need to start having more self-compassion. Don't make it complicated. Make it simple. Because that's how you're going to begin to hear. Because what you need is momentum. That helps us break through limitations. Momentum. What's momentum? The building momentum is you get these little wins. And we get encouraged by little wins, right? And some of you, all you just need is a win. You've had so many hits and setbacks, and you're just overwhelmed with it. And what you need is just a few wins, a few moments to like David did. He looked at Goliath and said, man, I busted up those lions, those tigers, those bears. So that gives me the perspective. David didn't just walk into Goliath without ever fighting a fight. David let the battles that he faced when no one was looking prepare him for the moment when everybody was looking. He was prepared for that moment. And so what's the simple next thing? Maybe it's just being kind to yourself in this journey because you've been through a lot and you need to have better perspective. I know for me, for a number of years, the only thing God would speak to me is, I want to teach you the power of living with rest inside of you. It took me years to even begin to scratch the surface on that. And then certain revelations came out. And usually the revelation that comes to me isn't the thing that I'm wanting, like the super key that unlocks all these wonderful things. Usually it's something over here, but it's really what I need. And when you connect to this, you'll connect more to what do you need? What do you need right now in this moment? When you cultivate love and grace, you'll be able to answer that. And just take that one next step and let it lead to the step after that. So I pray this resource is a help to your life and your journey. I'm going to take a minute and just look at the comments, see if there's any questions. I'm glad you guys are excited about this. Seen some great feedback here. Someone said here, I still don't feel God's love, and put the word feel in quotes. It's only head knowledge. It's not transferred to my heart. Even though I meditate on scripture about it and do what you taught me to do, I find it is process. And if I want you to first look at this and say, I'm still in head knowledge. I want you to take that and accept that. That's where I'm at. Don't judge it. Don't yell at it. Don't scream at it. Just love it. Love it in the meaning of place compassion around it. I'm gonna experience it in due time. I'm gonna keep seeking, keep asking, keep opening my heart. Stick with it. Stick with it. I choose to be future focused and pulled into the future God has for me instead of being stuck. And yeah, I got you here. Somebody said, I got to stop watching end time videos. It brings condemnation for me, how much I haven't done for God, how much garbage is still in my heart. Yep. A lot of end times teaching is laced with legalism and condemnation. So just be aware. Just be aware. I'm not saying all of it. I'm just saying just be aware. Good to see all you guys. Your experience. I'm glad the real life examples are helping. Yeah, that's a good statement. Somebody said that there's teachings that once you're saved, all your past issues are over because Jesus paid for it. There's truth to that, but there's more context to the journey. And you said here it makes you feel like you failed as a Christian because you're still fighting issues. I do see that as a problem. It loses context that we're on a journey. And Jesus the cross is a finished work, but we're in process of learning, not earning, learning. We're in a process of learning all that God has done. It takes a lifetime. It'll take 10 lifetimes. So it's not about arriving. It's about the journey of learning. And it's not about, being beat up. Mark, what are the things you can do to remind yourself that you are in a process? I'll tell you what I do. I look in the mirror and I tell myself that. See, I'm a believer that for most of my days, it's me, God, and the devil, right? Now, I'm married. I have a wonderful wife. I have children. I have friends, people I'm connected to, relationships, right? I can't depend on them to fight those battles. I've got to determine what's the voice I'm listening to. So I look at myself and I have a relationship with myself where I reinforce it. At first, I couldn't even look in the mirror because I'd pay attention to this feature and that feature and what I didn't like about myself, or just heaviness is over me. And I said, all right, it's okay. We're going to learn to have a better relationship. So to this day, I tell myself this statement. I have a whole chapter dedicated to that in the Heart Healing Journey in that book. I have a statement that I say. And the statement goes like this. It's okay that I'm not okay. I start with that if I'm struggling. But if I'm getting impatient, I look at myself and I say, Mark, it'll take as long as it takes. Because what it does, what it does is it removes the deadline pressure that I want to put on myself. We have a desire and we put deadlines on it. That's how we live, right? And God doesn't serve our deadlines, right? So he's working things, but he has a different timeline than I do. We think here to here to here. With God, it's usually more here, down here, way over there, a big way down there, over here. So I say, okay, this will take as long as it takes. And I talk about this in my mental health journey. It was one of the biggest breakthroughs that began to give me momentum in mental health. I engage patients as, it'll take as long as it takes for me to get free from this anxiety. I put no more deadlines. And it actually sped up my healing. Because pressure adds baggage to the journey. Take the pressure off, add patience in, and now you accelerate and you enhance your journey. It unclogs the pipes. It unclogs, okay? I see some more questions here about the mind and the heart. I don't know that I could sum that up in a statement. Write me an email on that. You said about the head versus the heart. In fact, get the Heart Healing Journey. I have sections there about moving from just your head, your mind to the heart. Get a copy of that. Read some of those chapters and then follow, and we can follow up in that. So this is good. Keep walking in love. Some of the questions I either wasn't able to grab them quickly. I didn't understand what you were saying, or maybe I just don't have time to address it in the way that it would need to be addressed. But anyways, pray this resource is a blessing to your life. Please share it with people. This has been a great series. I'm going to continue doing some more and some series ahead. So stay tuned to that. Go to markdejesus.com and subscribe to our email list. You'll get notifications of what my future courses are going to be on, future live teachings are going to be on, and replay this, take notes on it, share it with your friends, and I look forward to future episodes. If this has been a blessing to your life, consider a one-time donation or consider becoming a monthly regular supporter of Turning Hearts Ministries International. If you want to know that, there are a number of Turning Hearts Ministries. Just know ours is Turning Hearts Ministries International, if you're wanting to look it up. In fact, our website is a .org. But all my materials and resources are found at markdejesus.com. You can click on there, click on the donate button. There's also ways you can mail in donations and take time to take advantage of my books, my courses. Those are all ways that we can be supported. And so really, really appreciate that. And I pray you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and be loved.